Dear audience, thank you very much for your attention. I feel honored here to present you my paper about the care ethic of Tantawi's Fatwa or legal opinion on selling Muhammad Abdullah sex change from male to female in Egypt. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I argue that Tantawi's fatwa on Sally Muhammad Abdullah Sekcheng, male to female, embeds the care ethic because his fatwa attends to the feeling of Abdullah or Sally, who suffered from psychological hermaphroditism. I use the term emotional hermaphroditism to refer to psychological depression or anxiety of Abdullah or Sally from dissatisfaction with a male sexual identity. Tantawi's fatwa contains hadiths, the utterances ascribed to the Prophet Muhammad and his companions. Some of these hadiths encourage curing all illnesses, including psychological hermaphroditism, and others discourage hermaphrodites. This fatwa is on the side of medicine because it endorses surgical procedures to cure Sally's psychological hermaphroditism. And this fatwa addresses both aspects of these conflicting hadiths. The fatwa concludes that the operation is permissible as long as it is performed under the advice of a trustworthy doctor, and that Sally did not have it to indulge her own personal desire. Sayyid Muhammad Abdullah suffered from hermaphroditism since 1982. Briefly speaking, on June 8, 1988, Sayyid Tantawi, who was born in 1928, as the he was the Mufti or jurisconsult of the Republic of Egypt. He issued a fatwa on the sex-change operation of Sayyid Muhammad Abdullah, a 19-year-old Egyptian student of medicine at Al-Azhar University in Egypt. Abdullah underwent a sex-change operation on January 29, 1988. In April 1988, Abdullah changed his or her name to Sally. The operation caused a great deal of controversy in Egypt. Transforming a man into a woman was unheard of in Egyptian culture. The major players in this controversy are two parties: Sally and her supporters, which consists of psychologists, an anesthesiologist, a public prosecutor, a medical counselor for the hospital sector, and a surgeon. Then there are Sally's opponents, which include other students at Al-Azhar University who disparage Sally's wish to be a woman, and Islamists at Al-Azhar University, including syndicate doctors. It was the doctors who requested the fatwa from Sheikh Tantawi to determine whether or not it was permissible to do the sex change surgery. I explore in my paper that this sportive conclusion in Tantawi's fatwa shows that Tantawi created an emotional relationship between himself and Sally. This relationship refers to the Mufti's insight into the need of Sally and considerate attentiveness to her circumstance, feeling the fresh with his or her identity as a man. Additionally, I show that Tantawi's fatwa maintained a good relationship with the agents involved in Sally's case because they seemed to accept the fatwa. Therefore, I suggest that Sheikh Tantawi based his fatwa on this emotional relationship, attending to the feeling of other people, in particular Sally. This emotional relationship is what I mean by the care ethic embedded in Tantawi's fatwa. I quote explicitly Tantawi's fatwa from its English version in Jacob Skopgard Peterson's Defining Islam for the Egyptian State, Mufti and Fatwa on the Darul Ifta, published in 1997. Fatwa on Sekcheng Operation, June 8, 1988. Yeah. Let me read a part of the fatwa. Tantawi says, to the honored General Secretary of the Doctors General Syndicate, this is an answer to the syndicate's letter number 483 of May 14, 1988, asking for the opinion of religion on the matter of a student of medicine at the Al-Azhar University who has been subjected to a surgical operation, removing his male organs in order to turn him into a girl. We find that Usama ibn Sharik tells, a Bedouin came to the Prophet and said, O Messenger of God, can you cure? And he said, yes, for God did not send a disease without sending a cure for it, knowing it from his knowledge. This hadith is told by Ahmad ibn Hanbal. There is another version. Some Bedouin said, O Messenger of God, can you cure? And he said, yes, God's servants can cure themselves. For God never gave a disease without providing a cure or a medicine for it, except for one disease. They asked, O Prophet of God, what disease is that? He said, old age. Okay. This version is related by Ibn Majah, Abu Dawud, At-Tirmidhi, and others. And Tontawi continues, the person who is by nature a hermaphrodite, mukhannas khalqi, is not to be blamed. This is based on the consideration that if he is not capable of abandoning the female, swinging his hips is walking and speaking in a feminine way, after having been subjected to treatment against it, he is at least willing to accept that it is still possible for him to abandon it, okay, if only gradually. But if he gives up the cure with no good excuse, then he deserves blame. That is what Tontawi said. So I sum up, it is permissible to perform the operation in order to reveal what was hidden of male or female organs. Indeed, it is obligatory to do so on the grounds that it must be considered a treatment. When a trustworthy doctor advises it, it is, however, not permissible to do it at the mere wish to change sex from woman to man, or vice versa. Praise be to He who created, who is mighty and guiding. From what has been said, the answer to what was in the question will be known. Praise be to God the highest. That is the way Tantawi concluded his fatwa. I clarify this Tantawi's deduction in his fatwa as follows. He says that if the doctor believes that surgery and hormonal treatment are both permissible, then the doctor can determine the outward organs of the other sex and operate on Sally. Briefly, he does not he does so because he realizes that there is a type of true sex which which Tantawi describes as hidden male or female organs in the human body. And to reveal this truth needs a professional and trustworthy physician. Tantawi bases this idea on a process of interpretation, which Jacob Scott Gad Peterson calls ta'wil. Here, Tantawi makes a distinction between an outward zahir appearance and inward batin essence. Tantawi, says Skopgard Peterson, regards the outward appearance as deceptive, whereas the inward essence is always true. The outward appearance, Zohir, refers to Sally's sex, that is, she was male reproductive organs. Okay? The inner essence refers to the fact that Sally's psychological hermaphroditism is a symptom of her true sex. That is, that she understands herself in terms of gender identity as a woman. So, in conclusion, to the Fatwa of Tantawi, Tantawi tends to solve Sally's illness of psychological hermaphroditism by endorsing a sex change surgery, a point that Sally seemed to desire to hear from Tantawi. This point then is an encouraging active participation of Tantawi's Fatwa in Sally's case. I now am contrasting Tantawi's Fatwa to another Fatwa dealing also with the psychological hermaphroditism problem to help me understand how Tantawi's Fatwa solve Sally's case in terms of emotion. By contrast, another Fatwa contains a Quranic verse that denounces changing God's creation in general and a hadith which denounces hermaphrodites. Then the mufti of this fatwa argued against a sex change operation to an anonymous man who asked for this fatwa because the mufti considered that the man had psychological hermaphroditism, not physical hermaphroditism, having both male and female sex organs. The mufti only allowed this operation if the man had this biological hermaphroditism. This fatwa, therefore, eliminates emotional relationship between the mufti, who based his fatwa on right or wrong in involving this problem, and an anonymous fatwa requester who suffered from psychological hermaphroditism. This fatwa was issued on Sunday, May 2003 by Sheikh Salman Al-Owada or Al-Uda from Buraida Al-Qasim in Saudi Arabia. I actually found this fatwa in the website Islam Today, Al-Islamul Yawm. Al-Islamul Yawm is a monthly magazine under the general supervision of Sheikh Al-Owada himself. This magazine is published in 3 languages, Arabic, English, and French. I found his fatwa in its original English version. The anonymous man who asked for this fatwa recognized Tantawi's fatwa in his question. He sent his question to the Sheikh electronically by email, available on the website, islamtoday.net, English Islamic site by Sheikh Salman Al-Owada. Yeah, you can see in my PPT. The following is the explicit fatwa of Sheikh Salman Al-Owada under the title Frequently Asked Fatwa. Some words in the brackets, yeah, are actually mine. Question. I am a psychological hermaphrodite by nature. I was born a male, but my soul and muyula, sexual tendency, is female. I behave like a woman, and even my appearance looks like a woman. I want to undergo sex change operation to shift from khunsa nafsi, hermaphroditism, to a normal woman. As far as I know, there is a fatwa from Sayyid Tantawi from Al-Azhar Mosque, which permitted the operation if a doctor confirmed that it is the only way to cure the khunsa. I am suffering a lot because I feel and believe that I am a woman inside of myself. I want to wear the hijab and get married with a Muslim man. That is my objective after the operation. Please tell me if the operation is halal permissible, because I cannot change my personality as my nafsi is like a woman. The answer, dear brother, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is the answer from Sheikh Al-Uwada. You seem to be confusing the issue of a physical hermaphrodite with your condition. A person who is physically in between a man or a woman with respect to sex organs may have surgery to make that person according to the sex to which that person is closest. That person then takes the ruling of that sex in all matters. Your condition, as you state, is psychological and emotional one, even if it may have hormonal causes. Physically, you are a man. Therefore, you cannot undergo an operation to change yourself into a woman. Even if you have some feminine characteristic, if you are closer physically to being a man, you would be able to undergo medical treatment to make you a full man, but not a woman. Yeah. So, from these two contrasting fatwa, I may conclude that the fatwa of Sayyid Tantawi and that of Sheikh Al-Owada respond to the issue of a sex change operation for curing psychological hermaphroditism. Differently. Sayyid Tantawi concentrate his fatwa on care or loving attachment, that is solving the problem by making good relationship among differences to the psychological hermaphrodite, Sally. Whereas Sheikh Al-Owada focuses his fatwa on lawful obligation from the Quran and Hadith. For example, the anonymous psychological hermaphrodite Mustafti, the one who requested the fatwa, Mustafti, of Sheikh Al-Awadas, asked him whether or not having a sex change surgery done was halal, permissible. Sheikh Al-Awada said that it was not tolerable for this Mustafti, the one who requested the fatwa anonymously, to have this operation performed unless he had physical or having male and female sex organ, hermaphroditism. Instead, Sheikh Al-Owada recommended this man that he recover his psychological hermaphroditism by developing his spiritual lives, such as devotion, sincerity, feelings of awe to God, and medical treatment that excludes a sex change operation. So, in conclusion, I would like to emphasize that Sayyid Tantawi's fatwa is different from Sheikh Al-Awada's fatwa. Tantawi's fatwa seemed to pay attention to personal identity of Sally, who had performed a sex change surgery done for recovering his psychological hermaphroditism. Yeah. Khunsa khalki. At least, for example, Sayyid Tantawi in his fatwa mentioned that Sally was a student of medicine at Al-Azhar University. In fact, the Mufti's fatwa formed moral sentiments between him and psychological hermaphrodite Sally, because in his fatwa, the Mufti discussed some moral choices, possibilities, in a searching operation for Sally. So this discussion helped Sheikh Tantawi not reduce his fatwa to the hadith which denounce hermaphrodite people. Instead, Tantawi discussed the conflicting hadiths concerning this illness, and he elaborated this discussion with his interpretation that a sex-change operation was permissible for Sally if she had a clear and convincing corporal motive. For example, Tantawi said that Sally had to endeavor by herself to overcome her illness through medical or hormonal treatment and got a trustworthy, not money-minded doctor's recommendation for this operation. Sally had performed these requirements. She had been treated by two psychologists, Hani Najib and Salwa Jirjis Labib, for 3 years, 1982 to 1985, before he had she had her sex change surgery performed. And Sally received advice on a sex change surgery from them, from a trustworthy surgeon, Asamullah Jibrail. This advice said that her treatment was ineffective because her patient was already past puberty. The best treatment was then a sex change surgery. So thank you very much for your kind attention to my presentation. And this paper is original because I have not had this paper published and anywhere else. And I thank to Professor Musa for proofreading this paper when I took his class of Muslim ethics at Duke University. Thank you very much. Wa ma taufiqi illa billah, alaihi tawakkaltu wa ilahi unibu. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.